Welcome to another edition of Egberto off the Record. Today, I want to have a little special program. We're doing it sort of late at night when everybody have their kids put together, etc. I'm here. I'm honored to be with a good friend, somebody I met at a conference, trying to put this world back together. El Señor Pedro Silva. Uh, Pedro, first of all, how you doing this afternoon or tonight? How you doing?
I'm doing fine, man. I'm like living. I say I'm living in the mystery, man. Basically, it's so many things in this world is unpredictable. I decided to ride the unpredictable wave and kind of lean into it. So I'm doing all right.
Well, I've been living the unpredictable way for over a decade now after giving up my software company and saying, we got to make a difference. We can't
Yeah.
expect other people to do it.
Right.
You have to get up and do it. You know what I mean? You ever
Yeah.
look in the mirror and sometimes you tell yourself, or even you're watching news and in the old days, you're saying, why don't somebody do something about that? Somebody better do something about that. And then
Exactly.
you realize if everybody is saying somebody better do something about it, nothing ever gets done. That's
That's
what
true.
autocracy depends on. Having a whole lot of people pissed off, not doing anything about it, and don't think the status quo is maintained. Well, guys like you and me decided that we were going to do something about it. And one of the most one of the most wonderful experiences I had at that conference that we attended together. I don't remember the name of it, but we brought
There's a Jedi's for democracy.
Jedi's for Democracy. We brought people of every ideological uh, angst, of every race, culture, creed together and sat down in a room for 3 days
Yeah, that was
and
awesome.
really had some substantive discussion. But
Yeah.
then you had to come back to the real world and be in the midst of what Trump has recreated.
Mm,
So that's where we're at. But so, I mean, I heard a story on one of the lives that you gave that
mm,
really impressed me. And one of the reasons I gave our program today the title, Two Black Guys with a Message for Our White Brothers and Sisters, MAGA and Otherwise. And, I want to kind of piggyback off of a lot of what we discussed before at the conference, and likewise, what some of the experiences that you had. And
mm-hmm,
where I want to start is a story that you told
mm-hmm.
about how you grew up as a black man with your black dad and his white wife and her white kids.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a story you told that I'd like you to retell here to our audience.
Are you talking about when I was working at the hardware store? What the corporate guy said?
Well, actually, then it's going to be two stories.
Okay.
Let let's start with that story about you in your home, and you were the one reading, and
Oh
your
yeah.
father acknowledging that you knew so much.
Yeah. So that was always an interesting thing because I've told people plenty of times I never felt that experience of like what people call white supremacy because I lived in a house with white people from early age. And my step family, they were poor white people and they were not super educated. Um, and my mom was an educated person, master's degree, that sort of thing. And so I grew up like reading books, speaking what you call proper grammar and all these things from my black mom. But when I was in my dad's house with my white step family, like they were saying like yarns and like talking in ways that my mom was like, do not talk like that. But they would be like yarns and this and that and all this other stuff and finna and all these other things, but they also thought that they had this like supremacy thing going on. And they wouldn't say that that's what it was, but I realized that some of my family, my white family, was racist because they didn't want me to play with other black kids. And I was like, yeah, what is that about? You know, but because my dad was an immigrant, even though he's from Africa, from Cape Verde, they didn't treat him like they would a black American. And he was like a Portuguese citizen. And so they treated him like he was not black. And because I was his son, they tried to treat me like I wasn't black. And so they would try to, kind of make that distinction, but I experienced myself as a black person. And
Let,
so,
let, let, let me interrupt you there for a second
yes.
because as a Panamanian black man, I noticed that from the time I got to the States, where we have to feel for our native born black brothers and sisters in regards to uh, e- everybody, no matter of what race, culture comes over here. Uh, a lot of people under the white supremacy realm would try
Mm-hmm.
to elevate them not at their level, but
Mm-hmm.
elevate them above the level of our black brothers and sisters, just to create that distinction and
Yeah.
and manage that supremacy. It is a caste system that has
Right.
worked in India. It's a caste system that has worked everywhere. We simply didn't call it that way, but we
Right.
effectuated it here.
Exactly. And my family on my dad's side, like kind of perpetrated that or perpetuated that kind of thing. And so, but I didn't because when I was with my mom, I was in a black neighborhood, going to black churches and stuff like that. And when I was with my dad, I was in white spaces. And so but I would like read books. I would go to the library and get as many books as you could read and just read them like da 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 da. And my white stepfamily, they weren't thinking about a book. And then, so I never felt anything of what they call white supremacy, even when some of them, when I was around them and they would say stuff that was kind of racist, and I would say something, and then they would either try to say, well, we're not talking about you. And I say, no, 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 no. You talking about my cousins, you talk, so yeah, you are talking about me. And so there was that sort of thing. And then there was also like that when I would be able to do, my dad would sometimes like make me do math and stuff in front of them. And I knew like my multiplication tables and all that stuff like really early. And so my dad would do it on purpose sometimes and then show them like, look, Pedro knows all this stuff and you don't know anything he's talking about. So I just like never felt that kind of like, oh, some white people supreme over me because I lived with them and I was smarter than them. So I knew I was like way smarter than them. So I was like,
I want to go. I get it. I want to go on a little tangent on that regards because
yeah,
I remember when, first of all, when I came here, I went to Blinn and I went to one of the best schools here in Texas, University of Texas, Austin. And as I was, as I was deciding and convincing my daughter where to go, that is one of the universities that I wanted her to go to as well. She did. But one of the reasons was this belief that you have to be thrown into the dungeon,
mm-hmm,
learning how to deal with with these things, and for the same reason, excel in that way. I don't know that I made the right. I mean, she did very well, but I don't know that I made the right choice because I think sometimes we can mistake nurture for we can give up on nurture to make a point, right? And
yeah.
and you wonder about that sometimes.
Yeah, somebody said my dad was petty, and you're right, he was. My dad used to say, "The purpose of having a son is to be able to brag. If I can't brag about you, what's the point?"
That
So,
that that's an immigrant parent
yeah,
every time,
yeah, yeah,
every
yeah,
single time. When I started working for NASA, the first time I went back to Panama, they always talk to me about being Apollo or this
yeah, yeah,
or that because before I even started my first day at NASA, all of Panama knew that this
yeah.
guy worked for NASA.
Yeah, yep. That's how my obviously you're right. Like a lot of that immigrant parent
Hmm.
experience. And on my mom's side, they were immigrants too, but my mom was like first generation American, then I came on my mom's side second. And so I got it from both sides of that kind of like immigrant parent is like you got to be this way. And I was on a podcast earlier today with the person that's on here now, the mediocre black woman, and I was telling her how my mom used to make me wear dress clothes to school in the hood with a briefcase and telling me I'm gonna be a gentleman and I'm gonna be this and that and getting me in trouble in the hood, because she was trying to force this thing on me and like, and so it's a lot of complications. But back to your original point, I never grew up in that context, and my dad didn't come to America until he was 30 years old. So
Hmm.
even though we were in Mississippi when people were being racist, my dad was already grew up with people like it was too late. So when the people said that stuff to him, he bought into a lot of the white supremacy stuff, about like skin color and all those other things like that. And so that did have like an effect on us, but at the same time, he had this kind of um I don't know, like he held. I think like maybe a lot of immigrant people feel, and especially right now, when you realize that even if you play into that kind of game of white supremacy or putting yourself above Black Americans, which a lot of people do, that you're still never going to be like white or whatever that you think you
It's
are.
called proximity to whiteness. And what
Right.
happens,
Exactly.
yeah, what happens is the way supremacy works, it always needs to keep those layerings so
Yeah.
that, you always keep that bottom layer.
Right.
But in effect, you're just a pawn. But, in sort of the title, when I talk about the title of our program today, two black guys with a message for our white brothers and sisters, MAGA and otherwise, is because what you remember that program on TV called Orange is the New Black or something
Oh
like
yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a new name where I call White is the New Black.
Uh,
And before I go into your statement, the story that I really want to
yeah.
centralize on, I
Yeah.
want to say a little bit about this. And it goes like this. There was a time in America where the Chinese they were down below. They were building the railroads. They were looked
Yeah.
down upon. Blacks as slaves were always looked down upon. Indigenous were genocided into out of existence. But the as bad and as poor as most white people had always been in this country. Because
Hmm.
remember, the Declaration of Independence wasn't for all of the people living a good life.
Right.
It was the damn king and queen taking these rich people's taxes without
Hmm.
representation, and they
Right.
wanted control. That's what it's all about, right? We have
Hmm.
the mythology of what our founding fathers wanted to do, and we have the reality in that they were just out to protect those rich men. That's only 5% of Americans at the independence really could do without voting or anything like that. It's
Right.
important for us to know these things. So why am I saying this? Because as long as our white brothers and sisters could say, at least I'm not black, at
Exactly.
least I'm
Exactly.
not Chinese,
Yeah.
at least I'm not indigenous,
Right.
they always had hope
Yep.
that they could ascend into what America purported to be.
Yeah.
But the reality is now that when you have exhausted the exploitation of most,
Yep.
who's next?
Yeah.
And guess what MAGA found out? Why I am so sympathetic to my MAGA brothers and sisters is they don't know the reason. They just know that something is wrong.
Hmm.
And they just know that the birthright that they thought was theirs
Right.
ain't theirs
Yeah.
and ain't there.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
one of the graces that I hope with some of the programming that I do, and I know definitely based on all the conversations that I've had with you, both at conferences and elsewhere, and the stories that you told at those conferences, that you're right there.
Yeah.
Grace and elevating all, right? I think if we can get to the point where we point out that we are in the same boat and they were just being used as pawns, just like the black immigrant is
Hmm.
used to put above to try to
Yeah.
create that super gap between
Yeah.
white America and black America. Poor white people are that
Yep.
gap between the elite and the rest of America.
You
And
know,
they're just
and it's sad.
realizing that.
It's so sad, man. Cause like I used to look at my like very unintelligent family and like feel like, God, man, like I wish you could snap out of this like illusion that you're in because they knew when I was in the house, they knew that it wasn't any such thing as white supremacy because they would say, "Well, man, I'm white" or something like that, and I say, yeah, what's 5 times 5?" And they were like, and then I'll say, "Listen to you. I mean, look at you. Like, why don't you just learn things?" Because I lived in the house with them, so I could talk to them just like you would talk to any brother, sister, cousin, or
Right.
whatever. So
Because
I'll
they
just
were
be
your
like,
step brothers.
yeah, yeah. So I'm like, why don't you just learn, man? Like, stop trying to ride this wave. It's not going to do you any favors because the people they don't like you. You know what I mean? And I knew they didn't. And it's like, I go to the story that I told you. So I was working in a hardware store, or the
Don't
one
tell
I
that
was saying.
story yet. Don't tell that
Oh,
story
don't
yet.
tell her yet. Okay, okay,
Don't tell
okay,
that because that is the centerpiece of what.
okay.
Remember when I tell you about the tier system, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay.
Uh, because here's the thing. What a lot of folks don't realize is we as two black guys,
Mm-hmm.
we can tell white America stuff all the time, and for them
Yeah.
it's like, well, you just don't know.
Right.
But when it comes from their own, some
Mm-hmm.
and I hate saying their own because I think pigmentation and all of that is bull,
Right.
right? That's all it is, bull. But that's what America is.
Mm-hmm.
But when they hear your story about
Mm-hmm.
what occurred in that hardware store,
Yeah.
if they can personalize that to what is happening throughout America and why Trump himself feels so free
Mm-hmm.
to take their health care away,
Mm-hmm.
to take their SNAP away,
Yeah.
to take all of that away because they just don't give a damn. Every now
Yeah.
and then they just need your vote. Now tell your story.
Yeah. So just to give it a little bit more oomph, like when I say my family was poor, they were like trailer park. Like I was in a trailer park with poor white people. And the only reason that my step family got out of the trailer park is because my dad got them out of the trailer park from his because he made money from his working, even though he left my black ass in.
Well,
but but he got them out of the trailer park. You know what I mean? And so it's very interesting. But I was working in this hardware store in Mississippi, and this is how racist this place was. I was the only black dude on the floor, and they always would hire like a one black person, then they find some reason to fire them, that kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
And I knew that was coming, but I was able to navigate it because I know how they play. So I was able to like navigate and keep my job for a while. But on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, this is the part I didn't say on at that time, but you might have heard it before. On Martin Luther King Jr. Day, a person came up to my job with a shirt on that said "Happy Nigger Day" on it, right? And was there trying to harass me, right? So I was sitting there thinking, like, what would Martin Luther King do? I'm trying to stay in my consciousness, you know what I mean? So I act like I didn't even see the shirt. I was just like, dee, 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 dee. And then they came up to me and they were like, can you make me some black paint? And they put emphasis on black. They were like, black, just black as tar black, and some white paint, some bright white, pure paint. And they said it like that. And so I was just like, and I said, okay, yep, blah, blah, blah. I'm just mixing the paint and totally ignoring that they were rocking this shirt. And then I said to the lady, I said, I know a little trick to make the white paint even brighter. You want me to do it? And she was like, looking like, why is he saying this? And she was like, yeah. I said, okay, all you got to do is you take this white base and you drop two little dots of black in it. And they're like, bloop, bloop, two dots of black and shake it up. And then it gives it an effect, which is a real paint trick to make white
Uh-uh.
paint look brighter. You put a couple of dots of black in it. So I did that just to mess with her mind. And then she kind of looked like shocked. And then I just gave her the paint and just walked, gave it to her like whatever, right? Her friend who was with her, who was laughing the whole time, she started feeling like shamed and her
Mm-hmm.
eyes got teared up. And then she was like, I'm sorry, she's stupid. And I said, don't feel sorry for me. I feel sorry for you. That's your friend. And then they took off. But it was more to it than that. And then my racist boss came up to me and I said, can I take a break? And she was like, why you need a break? And I said, you see the lady with the Happy Nigger Day shirt on? And she said, you ain't a nigga, is you? And this is a old white lady. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, I never even try to understand what she meant. So this is the context of this place that I was working at, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now one day the corporate people come in. They're walking there, coming with their suit and ties, and I know everybody's racist, so I'm just like, okay, they're probably not gonna say anything to me. But they ended up coming by and talking to me, and they could tell that I spoke like proper English, and I wasn't like a lot of the people that I work with. And they were like, yeah, have you been to school or something? You been to college? Like, I said, oh, I went to 1 year of college. And then they said, I was like 19. I said, I went to 1 year of college. And then they were like, well, if you go in there and you finish it up and get you an associate, there might be a place for you in corporate. And I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of funny because I could tell they were kind of sideways to the other people in there. So I was like, that's interesting. So I was kind of like, oh, maybe I was wrong about these guys. But then these poor white couple comes in with their little kid, and the girl's wearing like a Sunday dress on a Wednesday. It's dirty. She got like Kool-Aid stains all around her lips, all red, and looking just kind of poor because they were. And then the dad sees the corporate guys and he kind of smiles like he has like a look like, I'm one of you guys, you know what I mean? And because those guys are like dressed up in suits. And he smiled, looked at them, and they kind of looked at him, but they kind of looked like, "Mm." And then as soon as he went past, they said, poor white trash, worse than niggas. And I was like, I was like, oh my God. And they didn't even
That
care that I was there or those guys were there. And now I was only 19 and I said, it was just like, douche. Because I already had seen it. I already saw it, knew that there was this kind of animus, this kind of energy, but those guys put words to it. And they just said it straight up, poor white trash, worse than niggas. And I was like, wow. And then I tried to tell my poor raggedy workers that I work. I said, man, they don't like you, man. And I was like, they don't like you. Like, why do y'all act like this? And they would be all like, and you could see they acted like if you ever see a movie with like a poor black person and there's like have you seen Django Unchained?
yeah,
So you know Steven, the Samuel L. Jackson character, is like, "Oh, I miss you more than a thing," like that, like that kind of like. Sometimes those poor white people they act like that too when they're around what they might think is upper echelon white
right.
people, but they hate them. They like I'm telling you 100% because I have been around by whatever grace in my life situation. I'm not saying grace like it was a thing. I just found myself in different situations and just like the event that we were at, I've been like all over the world. I've been to all different places. And I'm telling you, they hate poor white people more than anybody.
You
Like
know,
more than anybody. And
let me tell you,
the poor white people don't get it.
and let me tell you the things that I preach. Right in my in on my program, Politics Done Right. I have a phrase that I always use. Whenever we unite the barrios, the ghettos, and Appalachia,
Yes.
we will win the war. And
Yeah.
all along, that is what I've been preaching because the idea being the elite, the people who control white supremacy, they have put down every single group and pit every single group against each other.
And they
Now,
fall
think
for it
about it.
every time, bro.
A quick,
Every time.
a quick story. My daughter, when she was in med school, for a summer job, and this was before she got her two strokes. Before her, for her summer job, she drove through Ohio, West Virginia, with this medical company. And I remember the first day that she started, that she drove into West Virginia, she called me up, Dad, I have never seen poverty, poorness, and people living like this in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me tell you, I've taken my daughter to Colón, República de Panama. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, the town that I'm from,
Yeah, I've been there.
I took her to the worst area of the town that I'm from.
Yeah, I've been there.
And my daughter said, You went to Cologne? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And my daughter said, Dad, I have never seen this kind of poverty before and people like this. And she said, people looked at her like she was a space. And the thing about it is, they didn't treat her badly because she went there as a professional and they actually looked up to her. But like I said, these are the forgotten people. And whenever
Mm-hmm.
you see poverty on TV, you see poverty that looks with people of color.
Right.
But the largest poor population in this country are not people of color.
Mm-hmm.
By percentage, they're larger, but by actual numbers, the largest quantity of poor people are not POCs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But who forgets about them? You don't see them on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. The media ignores them
Mm-hmm.
because, again, that is the modus operandi, and it goes right back to the statement you heard that guy said.
Yeah.
We hate them even more. And
Yeah.
it's almost like it is like, we don't want to see it, keep it
Yeah.
away. If you keep it away, you can do whatever you want with them. And then you go into their neighborhoods and say, all of their problems are those black people are caused by those black people. All of your
Yeah.
problems are caused by those Latinos.
Yeah.
And that is the thing. That is a part that we've got to break.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because it was like especially for my heart, it was always like a complex thing,
Oh,
almost sorry for them because I would be like, and my dad, to my person's point earlier when they said I was petty, my dad was petty. Um, they, my dad would embarrass them sometimes and would make me feel even worse because I'd be like, my dad, like, no offense to my dad, but he made he had like a complex way of being in the world. And he would like joke them like my step brothers or my stepsisters or cousin because he was playing that game too. You know what I mean? Like he liked that his son made them look bad, you know? And I would like not like being a part of that thing, but it was just like complex. And then people with some of the ignorant things that I heard was some people would say, "Oh, black and white." They would say, "Oh, well, it must be because my dad was like technically like halfway." So then they would say, "Oh, well, it must be the white in you, like in me." So they were like, "Oh," because they couldn't accept that I just knew stuff, and I'd be like, "But my mom is black. I learned all this stuff from my mom." You know what I mean? But their brains would be like, it must be the white in you, or it must be that your dad's Portuguese, or it must be that you're a little bit lighter skinned than this other person. Like it was all these navigations, and I'd be like, no, it's none of these things. Like all this stuff is garbage, but people just believe it, and and they make these crazy distinctions. And I used to get really pissed off with like Dominicans and Puerto Ricans and other stuff like that because they would play those games too, and then they would try to rope me into it because like with my name is no hiding that my background's complex. You know what I mean? Because my name's Pedro Senor Ramos Montero Silva the second. So it's like
mhm.
super long, So they were like, "Hey, you know how it is?" And I'm like, "I don't know how it is, bro. I know you fell for some lies. I know that much." But it's like so people are so invested in it, and then it's like it's kind of complex because it's also mixed into how people experience faith, how they experience like government, how they experience everything because it's so ingrained into their bodies that it's like they're just trying to survive and they're trying to navigate this system based on a survival mentality. And so they're just like, what do I have to use to navigate that? And I just don't like playing that stuff. And so I would sometimes like almost mess up the script because I wouldn't play along with the game. And like, just like you don't play along with the game, cause like if they would say, oh, well, you're not really black, you're Panamanian. And like kind of conflating race with nationality and
Mhm.
ethnicity and all these other things because they just want to keep believing all these stupid lies.
And it's on all sides because I remember when I just came to to UT. One of the things that I always did is I wanted to integrate myself in every culture, right? Even here, as I moved into Kingwood, which is a predominantly white area, my daughter was in two different groups, a predominantly black group and a predominantly white group. We always made sure to keep her well integrated in knowing all aspects of life. Now, when I went to UT, I never forgot this. I joined several organizations, Pi Sigma Pi, which was mostly for Latin American engineers, as I recall. Then I joined the Afro American Culture Committee. And I remember we were sitting down listening to Martin Luther King. And, I Have a Dream speech was during the Martin Luther King time. And then I said, Martin Luther King is great and all of that. But I usually follow more the tenet of Malcolm X. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, one of the reasons I think we are in the position, and I've been saying this when I realized that I've been saying this since since the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
that when you allow others to cede you your democracy or your rights, the same folks who ceded it to you can take it away,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to you asserting your rights. And what I liked about Malcolm X is Malcolm X don't believe the violence that they talk about Malcolm X. He wasn't
Right.
violent at all. At
Right.
all. He was just saying, I am going to take my liberty. I am not going to ask you. or shame you into giving me my liberty.
Mm-hmm.
Because then people like Donald Trump believe that it is their right to
Mm-hmm.
free you or not free you, as
Right.
opposed to you saying, I am free
Mm-hmm.
and I take my freedom, right? It is a big difference whether you take what is yours as opposed to you asking others to
Right.
take what is rightfully yours, right?
Right.
And that is the issue that I had. And I remember that guy got up and screamed at me and he said, "What's wrong with you? You are not one of us anyway. You are a damn import."
Yeah.
And my eyes rose up. And I was radical. I mean, I'm still radical, but I have civility now.
Right.
I got up and I looked at these guys and I said, I don't know what the hell you guys think or what you guys know, but
Mm-hmm.
don't you know that the ship likely stopped in my part of the world before
Mm-hmm.
it got to you? But we
Right.
came off the same damn ship.
Yeah.
Don't be telling me that, you know, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
There's none of us who came to these United States, except for folks like Obama, whose
Right.
parents came later,
Right.
that didn't come here, none of us came here on a pleasure ship.
Right.
You know, your mother in the Caribbean, in the Caribbean, I believe, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, she was part of that diaspora that came from West Africa up the Central
Yep.
America and the Caribbean,
Exactly.
right up into Savannah, right? So
Yep.
I mean, people have to understand these things.
Yeah.
And I shocked them because instead of walking out and just putting my tail between my legs and saying, okay, I'm not one of you guys, I
Right.
asserted, no,
Yeah.
I am one of you guys.
Yep.
And you're not going to get me out of being one of you guys,
Right. Yep.
you know?
Yeah. No, and
Uh,
I had to do the same thing. And it was like a kind of like an arduous task, especially having a briefcase and a and a trench coat on. But it's like but yeah, it's like it's difficult, because people just get enculturated so young that they think is like that's just the way things are. And a lot of times it takes
right,
something tragic to get them to snap out of it because they're the constructs that get built in like the allegiances, the connections to family, all these other things that make you feel like, hey, I can't break this cycle because
right,
then what's gonna happen to me? You know what I mean? And
right.
it's unfortunate. And a lot of times when people like when they break out of these kind of things, like the kid, I think his dad was a founder of Stormfront, and he was a white supremacist kid. David Duke was his godfather. I can't remember his name though, but he wrote a book about it. And when he left white supremacy, like it wasn't easy for him. That illusion, and it's not easy, unfortunately, for even people of color and other folks that are harmed by it. And to my like the way I look at it, I think it's like, for lack of a better word, it's a spiritual issue, to some degree. It's that regardless of whether you have a religion or don't have a religion, that part of yourself that is like that, if you knew the reality of who you are on a deeper inward thing, you would see that this corporeal part is the smallest part of who you are. Is the smartest part of who all of us are, but we get so deceived by these externalities that we then lose ourselves in it, and we get caught up in shame, and we hold ourselves in these mental prisons and constructs. And a lot of people don't know, and they don't know history, so they don't know, like, when Bacon's rebellion happened back in the day, it was all everybody against the oligarchic forces.
It,
But
it was
then when they
dangerous.
yeah. But then when they realize, like, oh man, hold on, we got to figure out to get like a permanent lower class to frame this thing up. And so
Right.
we became the permanent lower class. So then other people started saying, relatively speaking, there was a chance for them to get upwardly mobile, or whatever you want to call it. And it's like a lot of people don't understand that those dimensions of history. They just kind of come into the world and they know whatever they got told, and they don't dig deeper. And that's, it's unfortunate. But I think that, when it comes to your survival, which all this time people have been perpetuating these things because of survival, but now they're starting to see that their survival is threatened on the other end. So now they're gonna start questioning stuff. Some people aren't. Some people are sold out for life. But so a lot of people, I think they're going to start, the pain is going to make them pay attention,
Let
and
me
when
tell
you don't want to make some of these cornbread white dudes, you make them too mad, when they flip, it's going to be a big flip.
Let me tell you something. I have a phrase that I've been using, and I'm like, when MAGA come to the conclusion that they've been had,
Yeah.
that's when you get scared, because the difference between MAGA and progressives who actually know that we've always been had is
Mm-hmm.
that they are armed.
Yeah.
Okay, they're armed,
Yeah.
and God help the ones that they go against. But you know what? One of the things that I know both of us are doing is we've been to conferences together where I've listened to a whole lot. I've learned a lot from what you had to say as a pastor, how you dealt with people, etc. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can tell you that you've left an indelible impression on me and on quite a few others. I just want to say that we have a lot of work to do, and we
Oh
got to
yeah.
sort of wrap this up. But we have a lot of work to do. But I want to tell our audience, and by the way, audience, thank you for being here. I've been reading all that you've put in the chat. Our the form of economic system that we have right now,
Yeah.
our form of capitalism, all of that, it because it's an extractive system,
Right.
because it's a system that a few people build their wealth off of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
The only way they can continue doing that is if they keep us fighting among each other.
Yep.
One of the things that I know Pedro has always done, and something that I've always done and believed in, is waking people up, making people woke,
Mm-hmm.
waking them up, letting folks know that we are all in the same boat together. And remember
Mm-hmm.
that pigmentation is just a tool, racism is just a tool that
Yeah.
capitalism needs to
Right.
exist.
Yep.
It's just a tool.
Right.
And when we get away from that thought process, we can work together to take back what is ours. So I'm going to give the last word to my brother. Pedro, finish it up for me.
I think I would be remiss if I didn't talk about a little bit at the end. As much as there's all these constructs, there's also sexism and all these other things that play into so much of what we see
Yeah.
as well, and the desire to like dominate over people. And so in the tension of America, I had to say that the tension between white heterosexual males and black women is like the major tension, because with black women, it's like they put them down for race, but they also put them down for being women. And so that tension is like the peak one, but because black women have shown so demonstrably that they will, succeed, they've been becoming like the most educated, the most this, like I was raised by black women, mostly black women. So like that tension, I think, is being seen because we saw that played out um
Kamala.
between Trump and Kamala Harris. It was like that was like the universe at play. Like, look, this is what we talking about right here. And however you make decisions, and this little tension is gonna show your real face, right? The real face of this country. And the people could not handle the idea of having an educated black woman who, like, forget about being Indian, blah 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 blah. Like black, Indian, Asian, whatever it is, a woman, period. Like our minds couldn't handle it, and so that sexism piece is in that, on top of the idea that they should be able to dominate. Because when you, I mean, it's sad to say, but when you dominate for a weak man to dominate a woman in their mind, and to even like and cause them to have like impregnate them, like the worst violences that you get put on anybody's been on perpetrated on black women in America, right? It's just how it's been. So like that mentality, that chasm, and it's like if we don't face that with our eyes open and pay attention to like what that's doing to us mentally, like everybody, doesn't matter who it is, black men are just as bad as white men when it comes to that sort of thing.
Sexism. Yes.
Yeah, it's or any kind of person. Until we can get out of that and like integrate that feminine and masculine energy and like accept the fact that we're all here in our multitudinous ways and figure out, like, when stuff comes up for you, realize it's your crap. When you feel so, it's your crap that's coming up, and work on it and understand how we navigate those tensions and make those distinctions. If we don't figure that out and we don't work on it, we're going to be zoned out there's going to be no hope for us. Like, we have to face that tension. And it's not like this, it's all constructs. And at the same time, it's having real world impacts on people's lives. Like, most of the people who lost their jobs with all this government stuff been Black women, you know? So it's like, we got to pay attention to that tension.
Look, let me tell you, Pedro Silva, it was my honor to have you on the program once again. I hope those that are listening will heed much of what we had to say and realize that we're all in this together, and not hide, not be scared to say things plainly, not be scared to engage, but to go ahead and just let it out. Let
Yeah,
it out.
let go of that shame and guilt too, because that's the thing
Let go of the
we try to avoid. We don't want to feel the
absolutely.
shame and guilt. It's like, just get over it.
Get over it, and let's go ahead and build what we know is ours. So anyway,
Yeah.
thank you very much, Pedro
Thanks, man.
Silva. You have a wonderful rest of your day, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
All right. Peace.
Peace.